And when we're not hustling, we believe that seeing sex workers as full people outside of our work is an essential step toward humanizing and destigmatizing the industry and those who work within it. Help us to bring you the stories of the people behind the fantasies. When We're Not Hustling is a 501c3 fiscally sponsored nonprofit project of the Social Good Fund. Thank you for considering a tax-deductible recurring contribution. All contributions will be received through our fiscal sponsor, the Social Good Fund. You can contribute at nothustling.com.
Put away the lingerie. I wanna know you. Tell me more. I don't care about the hear about you and see the world from your point of view. The coffee's already made, so I'll part the shades, just pull up a chair and tell me more.
Welcome to When We're Not Hustling, a podcast where sex workers talk about everything but. I'm your host, Jessie Sage. When We're Not Hustling is a weekly podcast that explores the lives and identities of sex workers outside of our work personas, our personal philosophies, ambitions, families, relationships, passions, spirituality, and so much more. We talk about our lives beyond the job, asking, what does the flexibility of sex work allow us to do, and who does it allow us to be? On our show, we learn who sex workers are outside of the work we're known for. When We're Not Hustling is an exploration of the people behind the fantasies. When We're Not Hustling is brought to you by Assembly 4. Assembly 4 is a collective of sex workers and technologists working to bring the overall cost of sex work down through their advertising platform Tryst.link. They also educate clients through the Good Client Guide and provide resources and articles written by and for sex workers. Assembly 4 caters to all genders and demographics and raises funds to fight for sex worker rights and against exploitation in the industry. Learn more about Assembly 4 at assemblyfour.com. Back to another episode of When We're Not Hustling. I'm your host, Jessie Sage. I think that this episode today is going to be really fun. Miss Faith Rae, I had never met before. She reached out to me and talked about wanting to come on the show, and I'm always open to meet new people and find out what they're doing and what their life is about. So I was excited to hear about that. She is a Canadian. We've had a lot of Canadians on the show recently, so I like them. So that's great. She's a Canadian, and when she told me that she was a multidisciplinary artist, and I started to ask her about what she does, and she makes art with bones, and I totally did not expect that. So it was so interesting to hear about her out and about collecting animal remains and turning them into art. So I love this show, and I love this show because I run into all kinds of people who do things that I've never thought about, and this is one of them. So I think you're going to really like the episode. I want to quickly introduce her. Faith Rae is a Canadian sex worker of over 12 years whose career is rooted in fandom content creation and online sessions. When she's not making men cry for money, she can be found hiking with her dog, making art out of ethically sourced animal remains, or learning new ways to incorporate sustainability and eco-consciousness into her day-to-day life. So one of the things that we talk about too is sustainability and farming. So I am really excited, and I want to turn to the interview now. Hi, Faith. Welcome to the show. It's so nice to have you with us today.
Thank you, Jessie. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Can you introduce yourself to the audience, a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So my name is Faith. I've been in the online adult entertainment industry for almost 13 years now independently.
Oh, long time.
Yeah. It works great for me. I love it, honestly. Yeah. I center my work around femdom these days, and I always enjoy exploring new facets of that.
Yeah.
But outside of sex work, I'm really into sustainability and hobbies and lifestyle choices around that. So one of the things that I'm going to be sharing today is some of the sustainable crafts that I make. I do art on the side. I'm a very arts and crafts kind of person.
That's cool.
And a lot of my creations center sustainability using sustainable materials. And I'm also going to be talking about the properties that I'm looking at because I'm planning on moving next year. And I want to start
in 2025.
Yes, in 2025. I'm going to start the official house hunt probably late spring. And I'm hoping to have a place by the end of the year so that I can build a sustainable living setup and homestead.
That is so cool. Let's start with the crafts. I want to hear about the crafts. So what kind of crafting do you do, and how do you input? How does sustainability get integrated into that is the better way to ask.
Yeah, that's great. So as far as what I do, I'm a very all over the place person. Suspected ADHD explains a lot of that.
Like every other sex worker that we, this is like a common theme. We're like, we're all ADHD or neurodivergent in some kind.
I'm in some online sex work communities as well. And we've all discovered the same thing. Yeah. It's amazing. So my art takes many different forms. One of the things that I'd say I focus most on is working with animal bones.
Interesting.
I'm very particular. Thank you. I'm very particular about the sourcing. Like I said, sustainability is at the forefront of my art. So I don't accept anything that's been hunted for me. But if somebody's hunting for food, I will take the scraps. Although most of the time it ends up being things that I find just when I'm out hiking, because I am also a nature nut. So I always have some gloves and a little plastic bag and a utility knife so that if I find something on a trail, I can pick it up and take it home with me and clean it up and make some art with it.
Wow. How did you get into bones? This is a question I've never asked anyone before.
I know exactly what it was. So when I was a kid, I was visiting my grandparents with my dad, and they live in a small town surrounded by rural roads. And my dad and I were going for a walk one time. And
how old were you?
7, maybe.
Okay, little.
And we came across a dead muskrat on the side of the road. And I don't really know what my plan was for it. I just knew that I really wanted the teeth. So I asked my dad, I was like, Dad, do you have any pliers? And he's like, no, why? And I'm like, I really want the teeth. And he said no. And that was just kind of that for a while. And I think back on that now and I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why didn't I ask for the whole thing? Come on. That's a lot of art supplies right there.
That's so interesting that as a young child, you were like, I could do something with those teeth.
I had no idea what. And the idea didn't really resurface again until later when my dad, again, was part of the, sorry, I'm wording this weirdly.
No, it's okay.
So it resurfaced when my dad bought a farm, and it used to be a chicken farm, and they would spread bones and other remains out in the fields as compost.
Interesting.
So I started picking up chicken bones all over the property.
Wow.
And that's when I started actually creating with them. I probably still have some really old pieces downstairs. I started painting them with nail polish.
Interesting.
That was another thing that I dabbled with a lot, was this nail polish is no good for my nails anymore. I'm going to use it for art. And so I started making necklaces and earrings, and it just kind of snowballed from there. I started becoming known as the person who collected dead things. My friends would text me and be like, hey, I found this bird on the side of the road. Do you want it? And it just went from there. I actually a large portion of my current bone collection was gifted to me by another sex worker. I'm not going to name names for their privacy, but they work on a sustainable ranch. And
interesting.
Part of the way that they operate is they allow animals to simply return to the soil instead of, going through a cremation process or a burial. And so she actually collected a whole bunch of skulls for me and a few other miscellaneous pieces and mailed them to me. I just had to pay for the shipping. And that's been
so interesting.
That's been a large part of my my current collection that I'm working my way through.
So I'm totally curious about, I'm curious about so many things. One of them is like what you do with them, but also before we even get to that, I'm curious about what does it mean to you? What do you think that the I know that there's a sustainability piece, but there's a lot of things that you could do that with. So what is it about the bones themselves, do you think, that call to you?
So I was an edgy goth kid when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And so the initial inspiration, I think, had a lot to do with bones are cool. It's hardcore. Mm-hmm. It's metal. Mm-hmm. It's edgy. Yeah. So that's what started it. But the longer I did it, especially once I started collecting full remains and cleaning them down myself, learning how to do that, it became a process of connecting with nature and honoring those that had passed.
Yeah.
It started feeling really healing in a way. Mm-hmm. And especially in recent years, I've unfortunately experienced a lot of loss as far as death goes, and bringing new life to things that have been a part of the death have really helped me kind of hold on to the memories and remind me that death doesn't have to be where everything ends. These people live on through our thoughts, our feelings, our actions.
Right.
And I just kind of embodied that into my bone art.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you but you kind of answered it, but I'll give you space if you want to say more about this. Do you feel this process of, especially as you got more into it and you started doing your own cleaning and preserving and everything, do you think that it changed your relationship to death or to how you think about death?
It did. Honestly, I think it's common for a lot of people. I feared death for a long time. I still fear the pain of dying.
Yeah.
But the idea of moving on from where I am now, in my physical form, it actually brings me a lot of peace.
Yeah.
And it brings me a lot of peace to know that the people that I've lost, loved ones that I've lost that are no longer here, are in a place of not suffering. I'm not religious. I'm fairly agnostic, but I'd like to believe that, I'm assuming there's a nothingness beyond life, but I feel like nothingness in and of itself is still something. And it does. It feels really peaceful to me when I think about it.
Yeah. I also think that there's something, I'm thinking as you're talking that there's something about the bones as the last thing that remains, or the most long lasting part of our physical form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they immortalize us in a way. I think it's been a really eye-opening experience working with bones the way that I have, figuring out the best way to process them, and my current process involves literally just burying them under mulch and letting nature take its course. And then I dig them up a year later. And then I do some final cleaning. Whereas in my early days, I used to throw them in a slow cooker and, it smelled so bad. But incorporating the natural process into my processing process. Oh my God. And seeing that, when nature is left to take its course, those bones are the final piece. Being able to further preserve them myself. there's a little bit of magic to it.
So I know you said that you like have made jewelry with them. What other kinds of like crafts do you do with bones?
I like doing decor. I actually have a little tiny piece on my wall that I can pull off and show you if you'd like.
Yeah.
So this is a rat skull that I painted with nail polish.
Wow. Yeah.
And the backing is naturally shed snakeskin from a carpet python that I used to pet sit.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah. So every time she would go through a shed, I would collect the skin and clean it. And for this piece, I mounted it onto some adhesive iridescent, like a plastic sheet. So that gives it some shine. It's kind of hard to pick up on the webcam, but
that's neat.
You'll see it in the photos.
Yeah.
I've been really into framing stuff this year.
That's neat. So what do you feel like you've learned from the process or from working with bones? I've learned that there's a lot of different ways to do it. Like if you're looking from the practical standpoint of things, like there are so many different processes, and also just becoming more connected in the bone art community, learning how different people do things differently. It's been really cool to see like just how many directions you can take this sort of thing. I see bones the same way a painter might see a canvas, and just seeing the possibilities and seeing the inspiration that can come from working with them has been really beautiful to experience. And do you, is that your main medium, or is that just where you started, and do you work with other things too?
I work with so many things. I'd say bones are probably the one I return to most. I also got really into stained glass earlier this year.
Ooh, that's neat.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool. I started off with like prefab materials, and I've been shifting away from that as I use up what I already bought. I've also started collecting like scrap glass to work with. Most of the glass that I have in my collection now is like leftovers from other stained glass artists who, have too much material or retired from the industry. So I'm never buying any new materials for it. I'm always like, I think of it kind of as like rescuing things. So that they have a chance to become something instead of contributing to the demand for more when there's already so much out there.
Right.
I actually, because I've been doing some framed work with my bones, I've been upcycling the glass from those frames that I also buy from the thrift store.
Okay, yeah.
So it all kind of intertwines in the way that I've been able to build sustainability into things. And I actually have another piece here. I didn't prepare any of this in advance.
No, that's okay.
So this was made using the same snakeskin foil.
Oh, that's so pretty.
Thank you. And like, depending on the angle of the light, you'll see different colors. It's semi-transparent, so you can see light coming through it, which I love. I've been making sun catchers the same way with it. I just really like playing around with stuff, because especially with like the snakeskin sheets that I've been making, like, excuse me, I haven't seen anybody else take things quite in that direction before. So it's been really fun to play with. I've been playing with different foils and flakies as well to get different iridescent shifts with them. And stained glass of it. It was the bane of my existence for like 2 years. But once I finally found the sweet spot in terms of skill and application, it just kind of grew its own legs and ran off and just became a huge part of my work.
Yeah, that's really neat. Sometimes I feel like when you work within like in whatever kind of work you do or whatever kind of play you do, that if you work within parameters, sometimes you can be even more creative if there's limits. And I'm thinking about what you're saying about, not trying to buy new things, but trying to like take things that people have discarded or that are extra and turning those into something again? Do you feel like there's that aids in your like creativity in ways?
Absolutely. I mean, I've always been a thrifty person in general. I've always had like sustainability be a focal point of my life to some extent for as long as I can remember. And it's always kind of forced me to look at things a little differently. And I'm really grateful for that. I feel like it's offered me a perspective that not a lot of people develop just because they're not in situations that encourage it. We live in a highly capitalistic, consumer-centric society, and buy, new. And I feel like I'm really grateful and privileged to have the joy of navigating sustainability and the things that it's brought forward for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. How, I've asked you how you got interested in bones, but like, where did your interest or dedication to sustainability come from? And seems like that's been a part of your life for a long time.
Yeah. I don't really know where it came from. It's just kind of always been a part of my life. Like growing up, thrift shopping was always a thing. And I discovered very quickly that I found it more interesting than malls because it was like digging for treasure.
Yeah.
I still like thrifting is a hobby of mine now, which is hard with me moving next year and trying to downsize. But I love the things that I'm able to discover with it. And, I thrifted with both my parents growing up. A lot of birthday gifts involved just taking me to the thrift store and giving me a budget and letting me pick whatever I could find. Yeah. And I think just as I got older, as I became more exposed to things like climate change, being able to witness firsthand, like the fact that we're getting less snow each year. Like I remember
it's really dramatic.
It's freaky.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, like when I was in kindergarten, I dressed up as a princess for Halloween, and it was so cold and so snowy that I had to shove my snowsuit under it.
Yeah.
And now it's like, we're in December and I'm not always wearing a winter coat when I walk my dog.
I know.
Grew up building giant snow forts, and now the snow never sticks around long enough to even build something like that. And in saying all this, I also recognize that I am not perfect in terms of my own consumption habits.
Oh, sure.
but it's definitely shaped a lot of my own behaviors and a lot of my own positions on things.
Have you found a lot of like community around that?
In ebbs and flows, yeah. I find especially online, going back to my online sex worker communities, we literally one person will be like, I'm going thrifting. And then everybody else will be like, oh, okay, I'm going to go now too. And just it is, sustainability is something that I've bonded with a lot of them over.
I wish I liked thrifting. Like, I want to be the kind of person that likes thrifting, but the problem is that I don't like shopping of any kind. And like thrifting requires that you like hunt for things. And I don't want the things. Like, I want to put as little effort as possible into like buying clothes or buying like anything. And so I was like the kind of shopper, because I hate malls too. Like, I hate malls even more. No, I don't like them at all. I don't want to go in them. I feel like as soon as I enter one and feel like the fluorescent lights and stuff, I feel like my soul's being like sucked out. Like, I don't like it.
That's a great way to put it. I've worked in malls before and I felt that way at the time too.
And so I don't like that either. It's not like I like shopping, but that's why I also don't like thrifting, is I feel like when I would go shopping, I was like the kind of shopper who would be like, I need a black skirt. And then I would like go to the store, find the first black skirt that was like acceptable and go with like just the black skirt. Like, I was not somebody who like shopped just cause, and so now I buy like a lot of my clothes just online because I found a couple of brands that work for my body. And I'm like, I'll take that one and that one and that one and that one. And then like, that's all the energy I want to put in it.
It streamlines the process.
Yeah. Yeah. And now with like, I'm so anti like all the algorithms, except when it comes to shopping, because I hate shopping so much that like, I love that they know. I hate that they know me this well. And I also love that, like, I'm like, oh yeah, that dress is nice. Okay, I'll do that.
It's creepy and convenient.
And yes. So I have like feelings about it from a privacy and consumerist perspective. But as somebody who doesn't want to go shopping ever, I'm like, oh yeah, that'll do. I'll take that. Yeah. They seem to know my style and my size and everything else.
They do the work for you.
No. And so, so yeah, I kind of wish I had more patience for stuff like that, because so much of it for me is wrapped up in like, I don't like the process of looking for things. And, so I just don't do it. But then when I hear people like you talk about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And then it's not great for me.
All right. I have a question then, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
When you do go shopping, do you only do it when you're looking for something specific?
Yeah.
If I can make a suggestion, and
Go
take
ahead.
it, leave it, up to you.
No, I'll take it. Or I'll listen to it. We'll see if I take it.
No problem. I don't tend to have anything specific in mind when I go thrifting, unless it's like, you know, I'm looking for warmer pants, but I'm not necessarily looking for a specific cut or color.
Yeah.
But for me, I get more usually out of browsing it than I do out of like the things that I end up buying, unless I get, you know, like a really cool score or something.
Yeah.
Like the other day I was at the thrift store and I found this tea set, and it was a vintage Japanese stoneware tea set, and it was pig themed.
Oh my gosh.
It had pig faces on every single piece. The teapot was a pig, and the lid was like a little bird standing on its back. It was ridiculous, and I loved it so much. I did actually put it in my cart, and I carted it around the store with me, but I inevitably put it back because I was like, you know what? I'm not going to use it. I'm moving. We have a rule right now that we have to donate more than we buy whenever we go to the thrift store. And that's been going great.
That's a good rule. Yeah.
Yeah. I recommend it for everybody, regardless of whether you're moving or not.
Right. Because I donate so much stuff because I get overwhelmed if there's too much stuff in my house. So I just go on like rampages and just collect stuff and take boxes and boxes of stuff to Goodwill and other thrift stores.
Oh yeah. Like I'm in overdrive right now because of the move, but a couple of years ago, I really got into decluttering, and I feel like decluttering became as much of a hobby as thrifting.
It feels really good. Like, it does. There's something so cathartic about it. Like, I'm just going to clear out all of this. And then my brain feels more clear too. Like everything feels more clear.
It's also, I found it was really good at like scratching other itches. So like, you know, in the earlier days of the pandemic, when everything was closed down, I'd be like, I wish I could just walk down the street to the thrift store. And instead I would just put together a box of stuff to donate. And I was like, all right, I feel that same sense of reward that I would have gotten if I had gone to the store. So like, I'm just going to keep doing this more.
Yeah. That's
but
so
it's
interesting
because I love.
No, you're right. I think that's part of the problem is that like, if I'm thinking about it as like, I'm not finding the thing I want to find, and this is frustrating, like that's not how
it'll drive you
works.
mad. Yeah.
When We're Not Hustling is powered by Black Venom Digital. Black Venom Digital is a collaboration between myself and industry veteran Mr. Black Venom. Black Venom Digital aims to provide adult professionals and entrepreneurs with professional grade web design, graphic design, and branding services that will inspire growth and success. At Black Venom Digital, we empower companions, creators, and entertainers with professional web design and branding. If you're looking for a new website or any other branding services and you work in the adult industry, please find out more at blackvenomdigital.com. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to your podcast. Doing so will help others find us. And if you're a sex worker who wants to come on the show and talk about your life outside of work, we would love to have you. Please send us an email with more information to nothustlingpod@proton.me.
You cannot have, I mean, you can always have it like a little back of your mind list where like, I wish or I hope that like someday I'll come across this really cool thing. And that does happen. It's not impossible, but I find some of my most treasured thrift finds were things that I just came upon that I didn't know I wanted it until I saw it.
Yeah.
And it was like, this has spoken to me.
I get that. I kind of feel like that with, this is going to sound like a ridiculous analogy, but I feel that way with my wish list because like I'll look at things online and like, I'm not a big shopper, so I won't buy it. But then I'll be like, oh, I'll just put this on my wish list. And then sometimes it shows up at my house.
Yeah.
That's so fun. Like, I like that because then I can look at things and not be attached to them and just be like, oh, that would be so cool. Yes, I will do that. And then it's fun for me to see what like my clients pick out as things that I should have. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. I feel like you could take that mindset and definitely apply it to thrifting.
Yeah.
Enjoy the browsing for the sake of browsing and the discovery for the sake of discovery. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to leave the store with something, but maybe you will.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I want to move into your move. That was we're using very few words in this interview. We're just using them over and over again.
That's okay.
Yeah. So
winter brain.
Yeah. So you're moving. Tell me about like what's motivating your move and what you want that to look like.
So honestly, the thing that first inspired this move was cost. I live in a very high cost of living area. I've lived here my whole life and I do love it here, but I don't love it here enough to pay the market rate for a house here.
Yeah.
I also have no desire to be a lifelong renter.
Yeah.
When I know that I could buy in another place that I could be happy living.
Also, as somebody who's into what you're into, like restoring things, like there's so much you can do when you own a house that you just can't do when you rent.
Yeah. I mean, my landlord, as far as landlords go, pretty decent, pretty trusting. And so I have had fairly free reign to do what I want with the house. And, to his benefit, I fixed a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But the customization that comes with owning your own place is something I feel like I've craved for a long time. And that's so
what
excited.
I really like about it. So I find it very fun to turn like, we bought a house that was built in 1935, 7 years ago. And so it was a weird house that was kind of in disrepair. And over the last 7.5 years have like really like room by room made everything exactly how we want it. And that's been this like labor of love. That's been so fun.
That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I have so many visions and I've been able to kind of test drive a couple of them here. And it's like, okay, this thing we're going to tweak for the next place, or this thing, like, okay, we learned that it was not a good idea. We're not going to do that.
Everything is so much harder than you think it's going to be. But then when you're done with it, you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
So great. Yeah.
Thankfully, I do have a lot of experience with the handyman type of stuff.
I was going to say, you strike me as somebody who could like use a tool.
I'm kind of stubborn in that I have a hard time trusting other people to do things right. So I'd rather just learn to do it myself. With a few exceptions, I've got a few people in my life that I will hand a project over to if I know that they've got the know-how. But I'm a bit stubborn, and it's a blessing and a curse. I learn a lot, but then I'm also responsible for a lot because nobody else has, been able to pick up those jobs.
My partner's autistic and they are very handy, and they attribute their handiness to autism because they would rather learn to do something themselves than pick up a phone and have a social interaction about it.
I love that.
So they're like, I would rather learn plumbing than call a plumber. And I'm like, all right. Okay. And for some reason, autistic people and ADHD people seem to be in relationships with each other.
We find each other. I don't know how. I don't know why, but we do.
We do. And some of it's not very compatible, but like you just figure it out.
Yeah. I feel like that's one of the things that makes us most compatible is I feel like we have a tendency to be willing to figure things out.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So we'll get out of that.
Yeah.
I would love to talk to you about that, but we'd have to cut it all out of the podcast. Yeah. So you said that like, you're not just looking to move to buy a house, but you want to create like some sort of homestead. So what is that vision for you? And what do you think that's going to look like?
It could look a lot of different ways. A lot of it depends on the property that we find. We have major aspirations of being way out in the middle of buttfuck nowhere. Apologies if, honestly, that's the dream. But we also recognize that we might not be ready to make that step right away. So there might be a home like in between the final resting, in between now and our final place, to help us kind of acclimate to not living in a city.
Transition home. Yeah.
But if we find the right place that checks every single box, aside from being close to a city, then I think we'd be willing to take the risk and make the leap.
So is this like an open thing? Like you're willing to go to many different states or?
Well, actually I'm Canadian and I'm going to be staying in Canada.
I didn't pick up on that. Yeah.
It's because I don't say a boot.
A boot. Yeah.
But yeah, so we've narrowed it down to one province and we flew out there last year to scope it out. We were originally scoping out one specific city in the surrounding area, but as we've continued perusing and kind of narrowing down what we want, what we don't want, we're like, okay, we can pretty much live anywhere that's like 20 minutes away from a Costco or a Walmart. Again, unless it's like a property that checks every single box, then we'd be willing to go further outside of town. But like, assuming we don't find everything we want for the first place, then, we'll stick closer to a city. Do you want
to do farming and things like that too?
Not full scale, no.
Okay.
So I have chronic health issues that impact my day-to-day functionality. And I know that with the animal rearing aspect of homesteading, you're responsible for living beings. And, I'm happy I currently have a dog. I've had cats in the past. My cats are in my backyard being processed. And, I'm happy to care for them and I'm able to care for them. I know that diving into the animal husbandry aspect of homesteading is something that I'll never be able to fully dive into. I might, baby step my way in, like start with a couple goats, maybe a couple, I was going to say chickens, but bird flu's coming up. So maybe not that, but start off small and like see what I can handle. But I think a larger focus is going to be on permaculture and building.
How do you define that?
So permaculture to me is a form of food gardening that works with the environment that you're already in. So you're working with native perennial plants that also work together to build, a healthy habitat and environment for the local flora fauna. And just like working with the land as much as possible instead of like fighting against it to achieve a certain type of crop. I want something that is going to continue producing food, even if I don't, water it every morning and every night. From the chronic health perspective, it's going to be more low maintenance in the long run, which I really value. It'll give me more time to spend on my art or rot on my couch if that's what I need. And I don't want to be more of a reason. I know. Let me reword that. I don't want to be an enemy to the earth more than I already am. I mean, obviously, we live in houses, we buy clothes, we contribute to the cycle of damage, and I get that. I don't beat myself up over the fact that that's just how things go. But I do want to continue to do better as I go. The more I grow, the more I want to improve my relationship with the land, the more I want to work with it, the more I want to help and support it, rather than be a force that it needs to fight against.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That's great. So what is that? How do you start something like that?
So in my opinion, and I think this is a fairly popular opinion within the community, if you want to get into permaculture, the first thing you need to focus on is soil. It contains nutrients, it contains microbes. Your soil health is going to greatly dictate the health of everything you grow in it. And something that I learned earlier this year in my research is that it's actually worse to till soil and to dig it up than it is to simply build healthier soil on top of it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Like, you grow up, you learn about the monoculture crops and how they run tills through it every year to turn the soil, and you have to turn the soil. You have to aerate that's not really how it's best used, actually. And I only learned this recently. So I've been learning a lot about cover crops, which is where you grow a crop with the specific intention of turning it into mulch. And then the mulch breaks down into soil, feeds the soil feeds the plants. A really popular cover crop is pea shoots and peas. So what some people do is plant those out in the spring.
Garden peas are so much better than peas that you buy like anywhere else.
Yes. Oh
They're
my God.
so good when you can get them fresh like that.
Flavor.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing.
So many things are like that. And I'm like, how did we make this so bad when it was so good?
I know.
When naturally it's so good. And then I don't know what we do to make it bad.
Pick things early and then gas them to make them ripen instead of letting them ripen on the plant.
Yeah.
It messes with the flavor.
It like dilutes it so much.
Absolutely. And it reduces the nutritional contents as well.
When
you're using them as a cover crop, you grow them until they're, half a foot to a foot high, and then you kill them. Usually you crimp them down. You can like step on them. I've seen people, they get like a 2x4 with a couple rope handles and just kind of like push it down one row at a time, step forward, and then cover it.
Okay.
So that cover crop dies off, and then that helps feed the soil and improve the soil quality. And that will benefit your soil more than digging it up.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
So like if you have hard soil, you don't want to dig that soil up until it is, soft and crumbly. You want to build a softer soil on top of it. And then plants will be able to grow into that.
Yeah. Seems like a lot of the things that you do, like, be them like this sort of farming or also like all the work you do is very like with your hands. Seems like you like to do a lot of work with your like body and with your hands.
Yeah. I'm definitely not the most physically in shape person, but I like being able to see what I've created. I like being able to say that like I did that myself. There's something really rewarding about it, especially like, you're going back to how home gardens have tastier food. Like I've been doing like smaller scale gardening at my current place. A lot of it is trial runs for things we want to incorporate into the future home. And, being able to pick a bean off the vine and taste it. It's like, I grew this. And it's just, it's so much more rewarding than going, I bought this at the store.
Do you feel like that changed your relationship with the food?
Can you rephrase that question?
Yeah. Like, does it feel like, so you said it's like exciting because you did it, but do you feel like when you, I mean, it feels to me like I'm listening to you talk and I'm thinking that this is all like, everything you're saying is connected somehow to like the cycle of life, right? Like what we grow, what dies, you know, how we use the thing that dies, how we recycle that back into like the earth. And so I was wondering if like taking part in like growing things to eat them too, like feels like that, like if that changes your, how you feel about eating or the food or like the whole process.
That is a fantastic question. And my brain is just shooting blanks right now.
It was kind of thinking out loud, but I was just like listening to you and I was thinking that like what you're talking about is like getting in touch with or being in touch with life cycles. And that's, and so that's not just about sustainability. That's about like how that is so much about sustainability, but it's also about like, what is our relationship to the natural world?
It has changed the way I feel about junk food. You know, I like to indulge every once in a while, but I feel like food that I've grown is more satisfying than the things that I'll buy to, you know, satiate a sweets craving.
Yeah.
And I mean, while I've been on this journey, I've also been working my way towards veganism as well.
Okay.
I think that kind of shaped a lot of my perspectives on gardening and food, like more so than the gardening itself shaped the food.
Yeah.
And just prioritizing and being aware of the fact that like we can feed ourselves without harm. We have the ability to feed ourselves and others in a way that actually is beneficial to everyone and everything involved. And being a part of that, you know, beginning phase of the life cycle, and then also being present at the end in other ways. It's I don't really have a good way to sum it up, but it's good for the soul. It's been really, really emotionally fulfilling in a lot of ways to incorporate that more into my life.
Yeah. And I mean, unless you have something else that you're dying to say, like that ending on like what's good for the soul is like actually a good note to end on.
We can call that a wrap if you like.
Yeah. So actually, but I don't end there. I have 3 questions that I ask everybody. So what are you reading?
I have like 3 different books on the go that I haven't picked up in a while because I've been really busy with other stuff. One of them is Children of Time.
Okay. Who wrote that?
Asking me questions I'm going to have to Google the answer to because I have a terrible memory.
Okay. Emily will do it. we'll see the answer in the...
It's a sci-fi involving spiders.
Oh, okay. All right.
And it actually involves the life cycle, centers around the fact that humans pretty much destroyed the planet and had to start terraforming other worlds. And there was a chemical that they created to speed up evolution. And so the plan was to shoot a bunch of monkeys and chimpanzees onto these terraformed planets and let them evolve into humans over the course of, you know, thousands of years. But something went wrong and spiders evolved instead.
Oh, okay. Is it Adrian Trosowski?
I believe so. Yes. I saw that pop up in the chat. Yeah. And I have read it before. I'm on my second read.
Okay.
And it
sometimes I love rereading books because I get so much more out of it the second time around.
I feel like books are one of those things where you can you can read it over and over again, and you'll develop that sense of comfort and familiarity, but you'll always glean something new from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate that.
Books feel to me like living organisms in that way. Like they change with you.
I feel like they kind of immortalize people and ideas the same way that I feel my bone art does.
Yeah, I see that. What do you listen to? Either music or podcasts, or what are you listening to?
So I'm honestly not a podcast person at all.
I will not hold that against you.
You're an exception. I think you guys are amazing. It's one of those, like, I keep telling myself that I need to listen to podcasts, and then I forget and just default to my usual music.
Oh, I understand that.
My music taste is all over the place. In case you can't tell, I'm pretty all over the place. But a lot of my go-tos lately tend to fall in like the alt rock industrial side of things.
Nice.
Like I said, I grew up being an edgy goth kid, and that never really exited my music taste. So Prefixical, Deftones are always kind of top of my list. I've been listening to a lot of Starset recently, which kind of gives me like future vibes.
Okay.
Like I don't know, they sound like something that should be listened to on a spaceship. And I also enjoy a lot of instrumental music, especially if I'm at my computer working. I find things with lyrics can get a bit distracting.
Yeah.
So things like This Will Destroy You and God is an Astronaut, those are really great to just kind of let my brain
They're great titles
fade into.
too. They're great titles. Yeah. What are you excited about?
I mean, the obvious one I think would be the move. My entire life is kind of revolving around it right now.
Yeah.
Getting work ready enough, scheduled out far enough that I can focus more on the packing and the planning and the prepping.
Yeah.
My partner and I do at least one like big declutter and tidy day every week. We have like piles of stuff that are ready to go to the thrift store in the dining room. It's kind of been taken over as like the purgatory for all the things that are not coming with us. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to more fully embody my beliefs, just in terms of sustainability and environmental care. I'm in my mid-30s, and I kind of feel like life is just beginning, and I'm excited for all of it.
Yeah, it is. I'm turning 47 in March, and I don't know. I think from my mid-30s on, it's like when you actually become the person that you are. It's
honestly,
like all the things that lead up to that, you like are figuring out what that is, and then it's not until you like figure out what that is, and that's a long process that everyone has to go through, that you can like step into it fully. And
it's a journey.
So
and
great.
I feel like, the more years I get under my belt, the more excited I get about the years to come.
Yeah, that's so lovely. So where can people find you and your work?
I am on Blue Sky at missfaithrae.com. I left Twitter and Instagram and Facebook for moral reasons. So Blue Sky is currently my only social media.
Okay. All right.
I can also be found on Loyal Fans, Clips for Sale, ManyVids, most of the popular clip sites, under the name Miss Faith Rae. And I also have my own personal website, which is missfaithrae.com.
Okay. And it's RAE.
Yep, that's correct. It's ear spelled backwards, in case you need to remember.
I didn't think about that, but you're right.
I didn't clock that until my teens. I just kind of realized it one day.
Well, it was really lovely to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a wonderful time chatting.
Yeah, I mean, likewise. And I wish you all the luck with your move and with finding the perfect property for you and your partner.
Thank you so much. I'm really optimistic about it.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us for another episode of When We're Not Hustling. I'm your host, Jessie Sage. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at sapiotextual, or visit my website at jessiesage.com. You can follow the show on all socials at Not Hustling Pod, and visit our website for more information at nothustling.com. The show is produced by Emily Foster. The music is by Benjamin J. Benamati. Signing off. Have a great week.